Hello, Socrates SaddleBrooke. I'm Stuart Orr, and I welcome you to our video podcast series, Has Science Rediscovered a Creator? Now, we have 7 months of very exciting topics for you, and you can view them all here, right here, each new topic being posted mid-month. The series starts with the topic Science and Faith, and I've selected a short scene from the movie The Bucket List to introduce the topic. It's a brief discussion between Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman that captures the essence of this discussion. Let's watch it together. I just love this movie. I mean, Nicholson is a very smart, hard-driving, billionaire businessman who is very, very successful, but he doesn't have feelings or thinking about anybody else other than his projects and his fame and fortune, his status, his leadership, power and security. There's no God in his world. We're born, we die, the wheels keep on spinning, as he said it, and that's it. Now he has 6 months to live, he found out. That has changed some of his perspective. He's in as a cancer ward patient in the hospital, and he meets an unlikely suspect here, Morgan Freeman, who is very smart too, but he chooses to lead a very low-key family type life. He's a man of faith and family. God is at the center of his life, but he also has a limited time to live. He's been given a diagnosis of a few months. So these two unlikely characters become friends, and with Nicholson's money, they have one last fling, which is the bucket list that they put together. A world-stomping tour that is at times absolutely hysterical, at other times it's so solemn, and at even times it's reverent, like it is in this scene. I love this scene because they're having God talk, which is the subject of our series here. Which of these characters do you identify most with? The Nicholson, the no God? Nobody's ever gotten over that sugar plum fairy wall, as he said. And his reality, this life is all there is, and the bus wheels just keep on spinning. Or Freeman, the believer. I just have faith. We're under the impression that Freeman's faith too is a reasoned faith, not just a blind faith. Well, that's the purpose of Socrates at SaddleBrooke here. We're going to be looking at these kind of questions. We'll climb Nicholson's sugar plum fairy wall and look at both gardens here. What do we see? On this side, no God, and on that side, God. Which garden do you want to live in? Or do you want to stay stranded on top of the wall? Over the next several months, the big questions of life: who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? Current series Has Science Rediscovered God? What has the scientific evidence of the last 50 years actually revealed? And this month is the first in the series, Science and Faith. Are they friends or foes? Now, normally religion addresses these big questions of life, but in the last 50 years, the scientific evidence says a lot about origins, destinies. We want to look at this evidence. What are these new scientific theories about the origin of the heavens and the earth? How life got started? Who are we as human beings? Where does the evidence point? In the past, for the universe and the earth, the universe was infinitely old. It never had a beginning. Today, we're saying it has a beginning. Life was just a matter of chemistry and biology and Darwinian evolution, but now we're seeing that this life is elegantly fine-tuned. Human beings, they were just an evolved animal. We're just an evolved species. But now we're finding out the mind is unique in very many ways. So next month, the origin of the universe, science calls it the Big Bang. In subsequent months, we'll be doing the origin of the earth, the origin of life, Darwin's theory of evolution, of the species, what it means to be human. But this month, science and faith, friends or foes. So the objective for today's topic is what is this conflict, or this alleged conflict anyway, between science and faith? You'll find out that there is really no conflict between science and faith. The conflict is between an ideology called materialism, which we'll explain, and you'll have firsthand testimony of that. Then we'll show why science and faith should work together. Then I want to describe a real culture war that's going on for science over this idea of materialism. And then I want you to put on your Socrates persona and to think deeply about all these topics. So let's first explain the conflict between materialism and faith. And I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Robert Jastrow, the director of, he was the previous director of NASA's Goddard Institute. And he calls himself an agnostic. He's not a believer, but he explains the ideological problem that he faced all along as being a world-class scientist.
Our universe, long thought to be eternal, static, and relatively small, was growing larger by the second. The implications were staggering. If the universe is continually expanding, then at some point early in its history, it must have been smaller and more compact.
If you reverse the outward motions of the galaxies and go backward in time, they come closer and closer together, and you reach a point finally where they're nearly infinite in density and temperature, and farther than that you can't go. So there is a beginning. There is a point in time from which it all started. And that's a remarkable thing because it has a very strong theological flavor to it. And that intrigued me because I am an agnostic, and if there was a beginning, a moment of creation in the universe, then there was a creator. And a creator is not compatible with agnosticism. And just as I can't believe that there was a creator, I can't believe that this all happened by chance, which implies there was a creator. So you see, I'm in a completely hopeless bind, and I've stayed there.
Robert Jastrow's uncertainty was fueled by multiple discoveries that pointed to a universe created out of nothing and governed by laws of physics and chemistry, finely calibrated to ensure complex life.
Life is so extraordinary, especially advanced life, intelligent life. Conscious beings are such an extraordinary phenomenon that, again, I just qualitatively find it difficult to believe that they happened by chance. Think of your brain, for example. It's 3 pounds of matter, contains 1,000,000 trillion synapses, as I recall, circuits opening and closing all the time. It's so much more complicated than the most advanced artificial intelligence. Again, I find it hard to believe that this is all a matter of atoms and molecules. And so I try to fit into my concept of the world the conclusion that there is a larger force of some kind, which we can call God, or you can call it whatever. But I can't accept that. I'm what's called a materialist in philosophy. That doesn't mean I like Cadillacs and big cars. My students always used to think that. It means that I believe the world consists entirely of material substances. And when you specify those substances, the atoms and molecules, and the laws by which they interact, you've done it all. There isn't anything more to be said or inserted into your model of the universe. And that's what my science tells me, and I've been a scientist all my life, but I find it unsatisfactory. In fact, it makes me uneasy. I feel I'm missing something, but it will not, I will not find out what I'm missing within my lifetime.
Robert Jastrow died in 2008. As the founder of NASA's Goddard Space Institute and the director of the Mount Wilson Observatory, he helped to popularize astronomy throughout the world. In his best-selling book, God and the Astronomers, Jastrow described the philosophical conflict between scientific materialism and evidence for a universe that had a beginning.
Materialism, naturalism, that's the crux of Jastrow's ideological struggle. He says that he's a materialist. Well, what does that mean? He said it, he's explained it beautifully. Everything is explained in terms of its physical aspects, its material aspects, and he can't resolve this evidence with the beginning of the universe, because the beginning of the universe clearly implies a beginner, a creator. Now, he's not a religious man, so he doesn't acknowledge God, and sadly, he said he's not going to solve this dilemma in his lifetime. So why can't he resolve this? I mean, science and faith should be able to work together. I mean, both say, just make true statements, attempt to make true statements about the world. Modern science is a child of a biblical worldview. They used to cooperate for hundreds of years. Why not today? Let's start with what science is. Science is, if it's anything, it's a rigorous attempt to draw true conclusions about reality. True conclusions. Well, what's truth? Well, truth is when we make statements about reality that actually matches reality. Otherwise, it's false, right? How do we do that? Well, we collect evidence, we evaluate evidence. Sometimes we have direct evidence, 2 apples here and 2 apples there equals 4 apples there. Most of the time, however, we have circumstantial evidence. There's gaps in our thinking. We have to do critical thinking. We have to do reason and logic, which is an amazing property of the mind which we're born with. And we follow this evidential path then, after reasoning about the facts, to a conclusion wherever it leads. And then we trust the conclusion, but we're always verifying that conclusion. So circumstantial evidence deals with facts too, but they're incomplete. There's gaps that need to be filled in, and these gaps need to be filled in with evidence of high probability. They just can't be assumptions or opinions or wishful thinking. So there ought to be high probability, and then we can draw conclusions based on the fact that we trust those assumptions that we made are true. That's a faith commitment, and faith commitments are true whether you're dealing with science or religion. You're making a faith commitment once you don't have direct evidence. So our conclusions then become open to verification. So faith is evidence that is supposed to have happened or hoped for, that these facts are true, and they may be visible or invisible. In materialism, nature alone reveals the supporting evidence. In theology, and particularly biblical theology, God and nature reveal the supporting evidence. So both science and faith rely on circumstantial evidence as well as direct evidence. Now, many educated people today see a warfare going on between the two, and they're right, but it's going on mostly below the surface. Many people today believe that science has disproved the need for God based on science. The new atheists of the last 20 years actually believe that faith of all kinds is evil, should be eliminated. On the other hand, many people, like myself, believe that the evidence of the last 50 years provides strong evidence for God and His intelligent design of things. Let's look at the range of beliefs among top scientists. Exhibit number 1 is Steven Weinberg, Nobel Prize winner, considered by many the most distinguished living physicist. He's an ardent atheist. He actually has declared that religion is an insult to human dignity. On the other hand, we have Arno Penzias, perhaps the greatest observational cosmologist, astronomer until his death in 2010. He committed his life to Jesus Christ at age 50. Robert Jastrow, who we just heard from, a committed agnostic, he declared he was going to not resolve this issue for his entire life. Now, in spirit of full disclosure, I hold graduate degrees in science and the scientific method, and was totally agnostic, skeptic until 37 years of old. But in my mid-30s, I went on a spiritual journey, and it resulted in my committing my life to Jesus Christ at that time, and believing that the Bible is the inspired Word of God. Now, that's my journey. But that did not disqualify me now from doing good science anymore. In fact, it made me a better scientist, and it made me a better critical thinker. Have you been on any spiritual journey? I claim that science and faith should work together. I mean, after they were born together, science was born. It's the baby of the Christian church, Christian worldview, I should say. Nicholas Copernicus, Johannes Kepler, Isaac Newton, all committed to a biblical revelation. And when this new technology came out, the telescope at the time, they turned their technology and telescope to the heavens, and Copernicus says, no, it's not that our philosophical conclusion since Aristotle that the sun goes around the earth. No, it's the earth that goes around the sun. And he believed he could figure this out because he believed that God was orderly and in control. Kepler actually, in addition to formulating, brilliant scientist, formulated the laws of planetary motion that we use today. He thought he was thinking God's thoughts after him. That's what motivated his faith. Actually motivated him to be a great scientist. Isaac Newton, the same way, probably the most influential scientist of all times, formulating the laws of motion and universal gravitation. He was a huge theologian. He spent as much time on theology as he did on observational science. James Clerk Maxwell, the reason we have all electronic devices and electronic technology today is because he formulated the theory of electromagnetic radiation in equation form. Albert Einstein said he stands on the shoulders of Maxwell. Now, these men and a host of others were great scientists and men of great biblical faith. It was their commitment to an infinitely powerful God that made an orderly universe that made their science, their observations possible to them. Albert Einstein, who was not a biblical believer or a believer in a personal God, he was committed to the deep faith of the order and the harmony of the universe. And let me read you what he wrote here. The harmony of natural law reveals an intelligence of such superiority that compared with it, all the systematic thinking and acting of human beings is an utterly insignificant reflection. So he put the two together, science and faith together, and he said, science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. That's about as good a definition as you can put why the two should work together. So what's the point? Well, the point is one does not have to be religious or non-religious to be a good scientist. I mean, great science can be done by both atheists and theists and the full range of people and religions in between. Belief in God, though, can actually drive one to discover the order of the universe and be a better scientist and a critical thinker. On the other hand, a religious scientist has no reason to feel less capable or be accused of being less capable because of his or her faith. They should not feel guilty, inferior, or intellectually stilted in any way. So why can't the two of these get along? Well, in the 19th century, the science became political. The university actually founded the university centuries before for the whole reason that God created an orderly universe and we wanted to study and connect the mind and the heart together. So as the church was in control of the university for hundreds of years, well, by the 19th century, science had elevated to a certain point and secularism came in. You didn't have to be a religious person to be a scientist, and the church lost the political battle, the power struggle that happened. So at that point in time, the church became suspicious of science, actually kind of left academia at a high level, and the local church ignored science altogether. The legal system that was used then as a bludgeon by either party to get back in control. And once that happens, we know that there's a divorce, and there was a divorce, and they created an artificial separation of church and state. We use that terminology for politics and government, but it shouldn't be used in science, and yet it is. And this artificial wall of separation became very evident in 1925 at the Scopes monkey trial, when it was favoring one side, and now it's favoring the other side. The point being that there's little, if no, conciliatory voices in the culture now, and the media just fans the flames of dissension. Science and faith have gone their own way. We talk about two different domains, for example, the magisterium of science, where it talks about how the heavens go, and the magisterium of faith, where it talks about how to go to heaven. Cute, but not relevant. They're studied in the university in two different colleges. So you go to the facts and the hard sciences and study science, physics, chemistry, and biology, and you go to the liberal arts schools and you learn about values and psychology and other sciences. the little attempt to integrate the two. But here's the sad part. We live integrated lives. We don't live fragmented lives like that. We don't pick and choose this and that. We want to know how they fit together, how they inform one another. And there's little attempt. Sadly, much has been lost in this non-cooperation. What's going on below the surface? Maybe we could appease this situation. Well, there's really a battle going on below the surface, and it's not about facts. The facts are the facts. It's an ideological battle. There's two different ideological positions, starting points. Neither one wants to integrate, and neither one wants to really come together. So that's one of my motivations for Socrates SaddleBrooke here is there's no reason to hold these two in separation. Let's look at the facts together. What are the results of the hard facts, the core issues? What are the boundary issues between the two that require circumstantial evidence, that require critical thinking, that require differing interpretations? And why can't, at the end of the day, say, here's what this evidence and here's this evidence, maybe even make an inference to the best explanation. That's what we want to do. That's what we're going to try to do, and we're going to do it. Respect, and at the end of the day, respect one another's conclusion and their specialized knowledge. But unfortunately, the secular culture is committed to promoting materialism, which is an atheistic position. So it's already taken a religious position. It discredits any science that's open to faith propositions. Take public education. If you look at the standards for the state schools, it's biased, keeping any faith proposition or deity or talk about God out of the textbooks altogether. At the university, there's new science called intelligent design, which we'll be bringing into the discussion. In the university, the science community is so ideologically biased toward materialism that it's hostile to intelligent design and uses the legal issue to root out anything that has anything to do with intelligent design or positions of faith or the God hypothesis. The government, almost all the funding goes to assuming materialism. So I put, you see Ben Stein's film here, Expelled, and I encourage you to find the DVD and buy it and review the DVD. And you can even find it online, I know, for free to watch it on the internet. But he goes into describing these different magisteriums and how the no intelligence design is allowed at all in any kind of public discussion. Even at the popular level, I mean, who doesn't go to Wikipedia? Now, do we trust Wikipedia? Sometimes. In this area, you don't want to trust Wikipedia. I mean, there's actual editors prowling for violations of non-materialistic assumptions or investigations, even just investigating, even putting God on the table and say, does he have his fingerprints on anything? And if you don't believe me, check it out for yourself. Go up, look at intelligent design or any of the new theories that are highly regarded, by the way, as pure fact. I mean, you'll see it labeled in Wikipedia as pseudoscience. That's an ideological commitment. These marches for science, for example, they're marches not to bring the two together. They're marches to keep anything of faith out of science whatsoever, or even dissenting opinions to what's politically correct. I mean, politically correctness goes from generation to generation or election to election. Anything that's not politically correct is banned supposedly should be banned on this March for Science. That's what the promoters want us to think. And then the media is no help here because they'll have faith programs and they'll have science programs, but when do you ever see the two of them brought together on NPR, on PBS, National Geographic, Nova? Now, let's just take one major example. If you're familiar at all with the Cosmos series, a wonderful series if you want to know what some of the latest science is and some of the latest science fiction as well. And But what you'll find is for 30 years now, this has been one of the most popular series ever, has 3 separate runs. In fact, it just had a recent incarnation with the new host, Neil deGrasse Tyson, astronomer. Some beautiful work is being done there, but it's actually religion in this series is painted as an enemy. And actually, it's a polemic against religion at all. Now, how do I know that? Well, I know that from the opening statement. Carl Sagan, in his opening statement, made this statement. Listen carefully to it. The cosmos, and he's pointing to the universe, is all there is, all there ever was, all there ever will be. That's not a scientific statement. It's not even a scientific conclusion. It's a religious statement of atheistic ideology. So put on your Socrates persona here. Think deeply about this statement. Let's see what we can understand. Is this statement seeking truth, or is it proclaiming an ideology about reality? Is the cosmos only all there is? Are we only atoms in motion for all time and eternity? That's the presupposition in the university. It was in my Physics 101 class. Is it true that there's no spiritual dimension to us whatsoever, no soul, no immaterial dimension to us? That we're just chemicals, reactions, no spiritual dimension and emotional direction are just chemical? Love, goodness, beauty, free will, these are just illusions. Our mind is just a computer, a meat computer. It's just material stuff. There's no room at all for a creator or for God. Cosmos is all there is. The scientific evidence alone could not come up with that statement. The God hypothesis is certainly a legitimate and competitive hypothesis. It was for hundreds of years, and it is. There's no proof that God does not exist. There's not absolute proof that he does exist, but at minimum, it should be at the table and given scientific consideration. So Socrates at SaddleBrooke will be evaluating evidence on all our topics. You see them on the website there, what the topics are. So month by month, we'll be churning through these. So I want you to do is follow the evidence. We'll be putting evidence on the table and follow it wherever it may lead. Don't predetermine what you're looking for. Don't cherry pick the evidence. Determine for yourself which conclusions you're likely to follow. And if you already have a committed direction, great. It's trust but verify. Use this to verify your conclusion. Now, some will say that this is unfair. This is an extreme view of materialism. This is not what the mainstream scientists believe. Well, I'm sorry. This is core ideology. Now, do all scientists believe this? Absolutely not. In fact, there's probably more scientists, working scientists, that don't believe it. In fact, read the essay on the website there and go and find over 1,000 PhD scientists that don't believe in Darwinism, for example. But here's why it's the core ideology. Here's Dr. Francis Crick, Nobel Prize laureate, brilliant. He was a co-discoverer of the structure of the DNA molecule, which opened the door to understanding biological systems a few decades ago. But here's his materialistic ideology directed at you and directed at me. And he says, your joys and your sorrows and memories and your ambitions, your sense of personal identity and free will are in fact no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules. Dr. Richard Lewontin, world famous Harvard evolutionary biologist, he sums it up and closes the door. He says, it's not the methods and institutions of science that compel us to accept the material explanation of the phenomenal world. So he admits it's not science that does this. We are forced by our a priori adherence to a material cause, to material causes. So he starts with a belief and then uses science to fill in, to support the belief. He says, moreover, this materialism is absolute. We cannot allow a divine foot in the door. That is not a scientific statement. That's an ideological statement. So with that conclusion, I want to take a break here. I'm afraid we've come to the end of part 1, but I want you to stay tuned for part 2, which will be posted by the end of the month. And in part 2, we are going to discuss this ideological battle that rages on. We're going to look at it in the academy at the top levels of control. We're going to see how it plays out in the classroom and in the public square. And we're going to see how the popular media contributes to this confusion. And then we're going to step back and start thinking. Remember, thinking, that's what we would do here at Socrates SaddleBrooke. We want to think deep about origins and destiny. So we'll put on our Socrates persona to seek solutions, just not to identify problems. And we are going to consider how Socrates, and in fact how his students, Plato and Aristotle, looked at this and approached this, because this is not a new issue. This goes back to the beginning of thinking, and we'll see how they would approach this, and then we'll talk about how you can use this information. So hope to see you back here for part 2 of Science and Faith. I'm Stuart Orr.